Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Travis entitled LA Times. They released that on July 12th. This is the 10th studio album for the Scottish outfit and their follow-up to 2020's 10 Songs. And admittedly, I'm a little surprised that this band is still together after 35 years. But alas, very pleased about this, excited to talk about this record. So many things to bring up. The consistency. I'll go ahead and start with that. Same lineup since 1994, not the original lineup. And it's really weird to think that there was a time when Fran Healy wasn't the lead singer and main songwriter for this outfit, but a lot of lineup shifts in the first 3 years of their existence. You know, they find Fran, they find that core group, and they've been together ever since. And that's something that I love. It's, you know, their sound, it's one of those things where it's like picking up a conversation with an old friend. And admittedly, the only two albums of theirs that I own in my record shelf are The Man Who and The Invisible Band. Got into them back in 1999. And it was at a time for me personally when I just started getting into music that had a softer sound to it, right? Grew up listening to a lot of punk, a lot of hard rock. And if you follow the channel, you guys know that I love the UK music scene, but bands like Oasis, you know, Blur, think of the Stone Roses. We just talked about Kasabian recently. All bands that are capable of exploring their softer side. But there was something about the way that Travis tapped into that with more consistency. And there was something about what Fran brought to the table with his songwriting with that element. It's the influence of bands like, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You know, think of Joni Mitchell, the Mamas and the Papas, that California folk rock scene. And then I even think of bands like the Hollies, and especially when they lead off this album with a song like Bus. Not that it sounds like Bus Stop, but you know, those two titles, like I couldn't help but feel that. You know, definitely a jangle rock element to their music. I cannot think of I can't help but think of a band like the Byrds when I'm listening to their music and this record. So that sound for me, I mean, that's really what hooked me in at the time when I got into them. There's the issue with the consistency in the sound. And as the years went on, you know, finding myself in different moods, getting into different bands, sort of lost sight of Travis. And I think that happens to a lot of us with all sorts of different music. And it's totally okay because, you know, talk about picking up that conversation with an old friend. Seeing that this album was coming out and knowing that I hadn't listened to a brand new Travis album in its entirety in probably about 15 years made me really excited to dig into this and dig back into some of their back catalog that I wasn't familiar with. And to also just re-listen to The Man Who and The Invisible Band, because those records are great. You know, people say that most of their records will sound the same despite sounding really good and being well produced. And to a certain degree, they have an argument there. But what I love about, you know, the two records that I've been mentioning, The Invisible Band especially, the use of the banjo. And I feel like that's an instrument that, you know, it's not absent from their other music, but I felt like it had such a place and such an incredible presence on that album. Part of a big reason why I fell in love with it so much. So it's great to see them doing something slightly different as this album moves on, especially towards the end, especially with the title track. They get Fran's getting a little chippy at the end on that track, and it's almost kind of he's almost kind of like rapping on that, which is something that is not. You know, it's not out of his wheelhouse, certainly, but it's not something that you see him do a lot. So there are some minor things musically that you'll notice on this record that do make it fun, keeps it interesting and engaging for the old listener. And I don't know if this is a band that is ever going to make a splash. I think about the title, The Invisible Band, and all those other UK bands that I mentioned. I wonder to a certain degree if these guys always kind of felt that way, always felt maybe a little slighted, like they were overlooked because of everything else and these other outfits that were doing their thing at the time. It is an interesting thing to ponder. I would love to hear comments if you have any on the idea of Travis feeling invisible, being the invisible band. But while I don't think that this record or any record that they ever make is going to make this big splash and tear up the charts, I will say that for the average fan, for the person that's looking to just enjoy that contemporary sound driven off those 60s, the sound of the 60s. The two big ones I think of really are jangle pop and the California folk rock scene. It's just a nice mellow angle. Their records are something that, like I threw it on this morning and listened to it a couple of times. Great way to wake up, enjoy my coffee. And especially, as I mentioned, the movement, you get a lot more energy on the back end of this thing. And I really dug that element of it. Let's get into the track run. It does start off with the song Bus. Great acoustic riff, nice soft groove that this song settles in. I like the rhythm element there with the folk element that's played in the guitar. You get that jangle pop, that psychedelic, that feel, and that California rock that I'm talking about. Honestly, this song feels like it could have opened up if they ever made a sequel to The Graduate 2, right? Where Dustin Hoffman and Catherine something. They're sitting there in the back of the bus, and I feel like this song could have just opened up a new movie of them just being like, "Oh crap, what did we do? What is going on?" It has this energy to it that it hooked me right into the record. Absolutely love it. Raise the Bar is your second song. Big drums, little simple piano, and a gospel element in the vocal to open. It's uplifting, soulful. Honestly, it's a little cheesy. I feel like they kind of enter really into that like big arena pop kind of rock, Imagine Dragons kind of thing on this track. It wasn't my favorite, but not necessarily a bad song. Live It All Again is your third track. And it feels like at this point, they're really steering this album in a mellow direction. I like the song again, arpeggiated riff, simple bass. It maintains this feel through its entirety for the most part. But I was starting to think at the moment that, this thing was going to settle in and just be really mellow, but it picks up brilliantly with Gaslight, big bouncy piano. I love the drums, the way the vocals hit in this thing, a nice horn element, just a great feel. And given the first three tracks, this song comes at the perfect moment. I love where it exists in this track list. Alive is your fifth track, dark, kind of like outlaw riff to open. You get this driving rhythm, and I dig the build. There's these contrasting light synths that are very like 80s synth pop. It's a great dynamic. Just dope walking bass line that works in a couple of times. Really a nice track. Home is your sixth song, B-side opener. Keeps the pace driving, and I really like that. You flip the record and it just keeps going. Really nice funky tune, bright vocal melodies. Leads into your seventh track. I hope that you spontaneously combust, funky, psychedelic, country. Really, like, this reminded me of Beck in his prime in the 90s, just that great lo-fi sound that he was working with. And this is one of those tracks where I was like, this is this band branching out, doing something slightly different, and doing a damn good job of it, in my opinion. I think that song is super fun and enjoyable. Naked in New York City is your eighth track. Backing things off here, minimal vocal and acoustic, open. You get soft slide textures that work in, a bit of bass that works in throughout the course of the song as well. But it's going to lead into your penultimate track, The River, just to get this rapidly strummed acoustic guitar to open, big vocal and synth to open as well. And it hits brilliantly after the intro. This is a really nice, just energetic song that leads into your closer. And this might be my favorite tune. I don't know. LA Times is wild. It's definitely, it's one of those tracks that seems kind of different from what you're used to hearing from them. Great intro. You get all these helicopter noises, rolling bass. You get this moody piano, this great acoustic guitar element. They're all kind of different, but they come together brilliantly. And then, Fran comes in and he basically starts rapping. He's very liberal with the F-bombs on this thing. So, I mean, if you have kids and you're checking out this record, it's not something that's typical of Travis. So you might want to watch this last song, but I love it. I love the energy, the edge. I think it's a great way to close out this project. I don't know. I'm not going to vinyl please this because I don't know if I'm that into this record, but what I will say is that it's a hot run. It's 10 tracks. It's 32 minutes. Being a fan of those, those early Travis records that I mentioned, if you're into those or if you're into them at any point in their career, obviously this record is worth a half hour. 10 very consistent tracks that that I think you will, there'll be so much familiarity there. But again, I think there's enough nuanced, adventurous nature that it's worth your time. And I'll give it a 7 out of 10. This is a pretty solid effort from a band that has just done such a fine job of remaining solidly consistent over the years. So I hope you enjoy this record. Hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and please help me and whoever decides to join the channel blow this project up in 2024. Stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.